So go check them out. He didn't like it. He decided to travel to come visit me every week from Tracy to Vallejo. And to me, that showed dedication. Plus, it also showed what he was looking for.
Right.
The other thing I did for him was really modify what I was already doing to reflect his environment.
Now you say he was a correctional officer, and so
What was that environment?
Yeah, because at that point, as a correctional officer, he doesn't have time to waste.
No,
He didn't need the fluffy stuff.
It wasn't in case I get attacked.
Yeah, it was. I'm gonna get attacked. I need something right now. What do you got?
Yeah. How did that really
Yeah.
change the way that you?
Yeah, because that had to
What
have a big
information you gave
influence
him?
on how you decided. I'm going to teach the individual,
Right.
as opposed to the masses of
That's
students.
right.
And that's application in its rawest form.
Exactly. So, because of the environment that it was in, surrounded by criminals, killers, constantly have to be aware of his environment at all times. I did away with a lot of the stuff that, okay, this is not going to work inside there.
Right.
So it
Close
was more of
quarter,
direct
very
for it.
tight.
But he had to explain to me his environment and how I needed to teach him how to prepare himself at every second and be aware of his surroundings.
But you had to really listen to what he was saying.
I had to. And just like for all of our students, we have to listen to the student and really watch the student and say, they're not getting it. I have to find another way again. Right? So,
But along with that, though, to go with that, as far as you listening and saying, determining what needs to go with them, you had to understand what they're using it for in the context of why they're bringing it into you, right?
Right.
If they come in and say, oh, I just want to learn how to beat somebody up, or I just want to learn how to show off and blah, blah, blah.
That's a school
then,
downstairs.
then that's the school down the street.
But you had to really understand that before
I
you decided whether they were going to stay with you or not.
Right.
You know, and I've always told, or we've always talked about that, we keep our schools small.
For that purpose.
I think at the most we've only had 10 students in it
Yeah.
at one time, you know.
Right.
But we usually keep it even smaller than that when we can.
And that was your design.
Yes. I really wanted the one-on-one as much as possible. Limit that to one-on-one. There's 3 of us now teaching.
Right.
We can afford to have 3 students in the class.
Right.
We can break them up.
Right.
Right? And then you get the one-on-one. It's best when it's odd number, because if we're working out, doing a 2-man drill, whatever, you're watching. You
Yeah,
get to
but-
see from the outside.
Third
That
perspective,
a third person view of what's going on. And then as you rotate, then the other person gets to view and really understand.
You know, and I brought that up last week's conversation where we say,
Yeah.
you go to a seminar, bring 2 people.
Right.
When you miss, the other guy's going to
Somebody
get
else is going to get it, right? But it
At
is
least.
a constant cycle of different ways of learning. You could be hands-on, straight in front of you, and be off to the side. You could be the one teaching. Then you have the student teach you.
Yeah.
And it just comes around full circle. Because
Right.
as you're learning from the side, you're getting to understand, okay, this is what I need to say because he's going to ask me to teach that. He's also learning to say, okay, I need to understand the full purpose of what that lesson is.
And this is where we get the idea of watching it, you know, looking at both sides of the fight.
both sides of the fight.
A thought
Exactly.
occurred to me earlier when you
Yeah.
were talking about the concept of the student and then realizing, oh, the student needs this. Well, what am I doing on my end?
Right.
Yeah.
Same thing in a fight. Well, what do I know? What can I do? What is my opponent doing?
Right.
Now you're viewing everything in unison. And then to top it off, you have 3 people. Now you also have the ability to look at the same situation, even though you're in the middle of it, from a third outside perspective.
Well, the concept of looking at both sides of the fight, right? It's really understanding what is going on. It's never one-sided, okay? Because if I know what my opponent is going to do, because I know I can do it, then I need to know that,
Right.
right? And
Be
it's
prepared
like
for it, yeah.
it's like, you know, chess has been one of the analogies that a lot of FMAers will teach. You know, the idea of chess is you make one movement, but you're 3 or 4 movements ahead of the person in front of you.
Right.
Right? So for every one movement that you do, he has 3 responses. But for every 3 responses that he has, you have a response to 3 more to each of his 3.
So now it's 9.
So as you go about training let's say I attack with one, what are you going to do? Right? But I also have to understand that I just don't stop and leave my hand out there. No. I'm going to go already into my movement. You just have to do what you're going to do.
Right.
Right? And that's the idea. That part of the exploration of that idea is really understanding both sides. If I do this, you do this, I do this, and you do that.
And because of the way we do that, we can also break it up in between all of that.
Right.
Just to
Right,
throw
you
the other
still
person,
can.
right?
Yeah.
Because we
Yeah.
can start to interject our own ideas within these little we don't really like to call them drills, but
Right. For lack of a
Exercises.
better,
Yeah, the
for
exercise.
lack of a better word, it's more of an
a drill,
exercise.
rather than an actual drill, because drill implies 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, right?
And you're
drill.
cycling through that whole process. Initially, we will teach you in order a sequence of events, right? Once you understand that, gross motion, just like in the Huba drill, parry, place, trap, right? That's what we call that. So you parry, and there's this checking hand. Now I'm trapping, and then I punch. But that I have to teach that initially in a drill format.
Okay.
As soon as we can see that they are doing that, it's no longer a drill.
Right.
Now we're exploring what this means, what this means, what this means, and what this is going
And
to
this
mean.
is the part that I want to bring up. That's why I'm kind of gearing into this.
He led the conversation to this point.
Tell me about Legos.
I was gonna ask that too.
Right.
This is his thing, and I wanted to hear it from him.
So the Lego, I've heard this analogy way back in the 90s, right? And it's a great analogy for really understanding, taking what you have, those Lego pieces, and creating something for yourself, right?
And it really is to the individual.
Right, because you have your own creative mind that can create whatever you want
And no
to
two
make.
fight is the same.
Right, and no two individuals will create the same thing because of their upbringing. You know, from the time they were born to the time that they're there training with you. How do I put this stuff together? Everybody has their own environment of which they grew up in, the mentality, their social structure, status. All those things will relate. You know, inner city as opposed to suburbs. Everybody has their own way of doing things.
And when did that come into light in your process of creating the Blade in Mind? When did that realization hit you that no matter how much you teach, or no matter whether you teach the same thing over and over again repetitively, each person is going to grasp something different? When did that light bulb moment happen for you?
Well, again, going back to the idea that I would use this word now. So then it becomes like across the board, this is universal almost. It's a universal thought that everybody has.
Now, and that's crazy that you said, because the way my understanding is, the way I'm showing it, and the way I'm teaching it, whatever, it's a different word.
It is. Right, but that's fine because of your thought process. For you, it works that
Well,
way.
because I don't want the people to think that I'm copying your words.
Right,
Because I
right,
don't.
No.
Because I don't.
But
You know.
the sequence, or let's say the sentence of that word,
Yeah.
right? That's your interpretation of what I was teaching you.
Right.
But does it come across? The student still has to acknowledge
Whether they're getting it or not.
whether they're getting it or not.
Right.
So, but for your own thought process, this is the way you're going to explain it. That's you, right? And you
Exactly.
can't get away from that because that's you,
Right, right.
right?
We
Now
try
you
to get
will
away from
explain
him.
it his way, but then he'll find that's not working. I have to find another way because of the student, right? You have your initial thought, but based on the receiver of that thought,
That thought
I
changed.
mean, the way I
Do
got
I
it from you was one way, and the way I'm going to give it out is going to be another way, because
can-
it caters to me.
That's
For
cool.
what
well,
I
no,
do.
because unless you start to think like me,
Right. And
then
we
that's
don't.
that process,
And
we
Right.
don't.
and we won't.
Well, like you said, we can't.
We can't.
Right.
But the idea of how we convey,
Right. And the essence is always still the same.
same, right?
We could be
No
saying it
matter
a
what
bunch of
word.
different ways, but it's still.
Still
Right.
5 levels, still
Yeah.
interpretation, still conveying.
And that's what I've always loved about it. And that's what always tickles me, is because
Right.
no matter what I do and no matter what I say, it's still right.
It's still right.
It's still Danny's bladed
Right.
mind.
Yeah, it's still, yes.
still.
We still have to bow down to you and say yes. It's,
The this whole idea, again, really stems from really breaking it down to its simplest form.
Right.
It makes that part of teaching or conveying information because it is so simple.
Right.
So it doesn't matter what you're teaching, just simplify it to its nature. For the initial thought or the initial teachings, simplify it.
Yeah.
Do you think we can go too simple that it really dummies down everything we're doing, though?
Ooh, that's a good question.
Well, dumbing it down, no, because we don't know the receiver just yet. We don't know
What
the level of comprehension.
right, for themselves.
And then as they're in long enough, we understand, oh, they get it right away. Then I can start to change for
Be a
that
bit more
individual.
complex with it.
Right. And you don't always have to
I
simplify.
like how I brought that in because this becomes an important aspect, doesn't it?
It does.
Yeah, because that individual, we do not know
We do
what
not
their
know.
abilities are, whether they've been doing martial arts or not,
Right.
or whether they're brand new
Right.
off the streets and no knowledge, like Naeem.
Right.
I mean, Naeem thankfully was this big sponge and he was able to soak in all this information and turn it into what he does for him. But somebody else, and we've had other people who came in with a background
Yeah, with background.
and couldn't get it,
Yeah.
or just did
Didn't
not want to
understand
change.
didn't understand the process of learning the way that we were teaching it.
And
Still
it was
doing
too
the way
ingrained.
they were taught.
But
It was too ingrained.
Yeah, it was too ingrained already in them to learn a certain way, right? It's just like if you go to traditional school versus homeschooling, they're still teaching the same thing, but the concept and idea of homeschooling is different from a public school.
Right.
Even more so with a private school, right? Because they have different ways of doing things.
Yeah,
right?
different environments in which they cultivate that mind.
I always talk about the ideas. Okay, you're in high school, you have 3 different math teachers. They're all teaching from the same book. But why does one student, no, I like my teacher. I hate that teacher. Over there. I can't understand a word he's saying.
Right.
I was
But they're
having a
teaching-
bad grade.
But they're teaching from the same book,
Right.
right? So what is it? It's that individual teacher that really caters to that one student.
In conjunction to that student's own personal.
Right.
way of learning.
They kind of mesh.
They complement each other
Yeah,
or they
complement.
don't.
The teaching process and the learning process melded perfectly for those students.
And we found a way to our own individual ideas, along with talking with each other all the time. That how do I tackle this student,
Right.
Danny? I have a problem with this guy.
That
How
has
do
to
I-
be of the utmost importance for
Right.
us.
I mean, I've come to you with regards to some students say, hey, this is not coming across. What do you think? Or we've done the same, back and forth. I mean, I think we all have. Where we say, hey, listen, I don't think I'm getting through to this individual.
Yeah. I couldn't get through to this guy for the longest time, but he finally got it.
He just had to accept.
Yeah. I just have to accept who he was,
His limitations.
but it's not wrong. It's not wrong.
Thank you.
I
think
can't say that it's wrong, but
You can't say that it's right either.
it's
Thank
right
you.
for me.
Oh,
It's right for him.
It's right for me,
you.
dang it.
Okay, okay.
Let's get that square.
All right.
So we came up with a bunch of stuff. The level of understanding, the anatomy of a strike, all these things.
anatomy
kinda
of strike.
helps.
We have not talked about that, and I think that's
No,
something.
yeah, that's something
And this
that
would be
we
great
should.
coming from you, because of who you are. But,
I'm Danny.
yeah, this is the guy we've been talking about.
Dan
all along.
Ramos.
Yeah, it finally got me here.
So, anatomy of a strike. What is
Anatomy
that?
of the strike.
Where does that go? And what does that?
Okay.
How does that fit into the grand scheme of things? Because that's a very important piece to us.
That is.
I mean, that's one of our
main
founding
things that we create. So for every
That's how you make Lego pieces.
for every drill, or let's say again, for lack of a better word, a technique, right? Or let's just call it a strike. For every strike, there are 5 different things that are involved with every strike.
5 elements
Right?
that are.
5 elements that are there, and there's some subcategories of stuff
Right.
as well. But we'll talk about the 5 main points, right? When you go to strike something, first of all, there has to be a target. Whether that target comes to you or is being delivered to you, if he delivers an angle 1 to me, that hand is the target, right?
You didn't choose it. It just
right.
became this.
That is the target, right? Whether you chose it or it was given to you as a target,
Ah,
then it's the
Verbiage.
target.
Verbiage.
Right? It's given to you as a target. The next part is the weapon that's going to be taking care of that target. So,
What
and
weapon?
it has to be in this order. pretty much, right? So it's target,
Okay.
weapon,
All right.
energy, footwork, and follow-up.
All right. So
Energy
here's your
is
target.
also replaced with delivery.
Delivery,
Right.
right? So here it is. He delivers that. I'm going to hit it with a finger.
So the
that's-
finger becomes.
The
weapon.
finger is
Okay.
the weapon. The idea that it's coming off of my right shoulder, coming down and delivering this way, that's one. That's my weapon delivering a diagonal strike. All right. My energy is, am I bringing all of this forward? So energy and footwork kind of goes hand in hand as far as delivery. Right? I can step in with my right foot, deliver this, and now my whole body. That's my whole energy coming into this hand.
Depending on how far you are from the person.
Right, right. We're just talking specifically of target, weapon, and energy.
Got it.
All the little details will come in
Yeah,
as we
subcategories.
Those are the
as
sad protocols. Okay.
right. So, target, weapon, energy, to include footwork, right? And then what's next? Now we have the follow-up. What am I going to do after I hit that? Okay. So by understanding the anatomy of a strike, to understand the third level of understanding now, let's go back to that third level, because the first level of understanding was, again, going back to the gross motion. We added the details, right, in level 2. Level 3 is a variation. So now we go back to the strike. I hit it this way. My forward motion is my energy. My hand coming down this way is the same. Targeting stayed the same. But my follow-up now might have changed. That's a variation. What about delivering to that one? I'm still stepping forward. I'm still stepping forward. My energy now is going this way. That's a variation. But everything else stayed the same. My
All the other
follow-up,
elements are still there.
they could have stayed the same. And this is our understanding.
Okay.
Next time, I might hit you with that, but I'm stepping with my right foot towards my opponent, or my left foot this time. But everything else stayed the same. This is what we get to explore what we're being taught. So, if I showed you 1 and 11, you can step right, step left, step back, step the other side. Still the same energy, right? Still, they're walking forward, I'm stepping back, and I'm still delivering that one.
As if you were walking forward.
As if I was walking forward, right? Sure, I have forward motion, that's one way, but I have forward motion stepping off with my right foot, or forward motion stepping with my left foot, and it may be because of the way they delivered their angle one.
Because that changes the things, like you said.
The follow-up
I
will
gave
change
you
to
this
that.
target.
Right.
Now all of a sudden you hit me with your side. I drop.
Right.
Now your target
now-
becomes clear.
Now, my follow-up then would automatically go to what's given at
Because
that
it would make
point.
more sense. And I think what I've always liked about the idea of the anatomy of a strike is that regardless of what system you use,
You will have that.
they're there. The elements are there no matter what the fight. They're
Right,
trying to hit something specific. However they do it, whether they think about it or not, that's all those things happening in that
And you
moment.
don't realize it's there until it's being told to you.
Right, right.
You're doing all these things, but you never knew. Here it is. We break it down to a point where it's like, look, there's 5 things
That's happening
constantly
all
go
the time.
on every
Constantly
time
back
an
and
arm
forth,
goes out.
right.
Any kind of a strike, no matter what
A
it is.
kick, anything. Huh. That's I've always really appreciated the simplicity of that because it's found everywhere. A street fight, a dojo fight, a tournament, all those elements are constantly there.
Where do you think this is going to go? Or what would you hope? Where would you hope this?
Well, because we're trying to stay small, what I would like to happen is the students that we have now all become instructors. That's the only way we can grow, right? Or we don't grow, but the bladed mind is the one that's growing. That's what I would love to have. But take Risa, Dion, right? Marco, when he comes back.
College!
right? But take what we have
Paul
now,
and Ski.
create
Right.
our base of instructors. Then from there we can branch off.
Now I've noticed that we're not in a rush.
We're definitely not in a rush. It's still growing. It's still evolving.
It's still in the infancy stages.
Yeah,
Well,
definitely.
I mean,
yeah,
to a
it
point.
is.
Ground
It is.
level.
We're at ground level with this system, and again, it's not really a system, but it's the idea of
Learning.
teaching and learning.
Yeah, the
Right.
process of information.
All right, we've been told that the way that we do our exercises, which are basic combative movements, right? But we created exercises for them so that it's ingrained. The synapses in our brain will pick up on these movements.
Thank you, Nicholas Moreno.
Yes. He pointed that out, though. It's just like, basketball players, when Steph goes in for that three, it's automatic, right? He knows from the time that it leaves his hand that
gonna
it's
go
there.
in.
He
But
doesn't
that
look.
motion, he might have done that a million times, that he knows that when it leaves his hand,
It's
in.
there. He knows.
It's
He
in.
knows exactly
He knows
what
Because
it's
he's
doing.
done it a gazillion million times.
Right.
That the
Right.
process has always been the same.
Now, is it that he's done it a gazillion million times, or is it more important that he understood what things had to happen at the right time for that to be
Well,
a
again,
bucket?
it goes back to his gross motion, the details he puts into it, and depending where
There
he's
you
at,
go.
the variations.
And we
of
can-
that.
Right, because he can shoot from any part of the court.
Right,
Right.
and that would be the variation for that.
Right.
So this whole process, right? We just brought
Applied
Steph
it.
into this idea, but we apply that same concept into anything that you're learning. Break it down to its simplest form. What
Right.
is that? Okay, I got to get this hip motion, and then when I
Yeah.
come up, I need
Right.
to have that right.
Even the anatomy of a
That's
strike.
Right. It falls into that idea that, okay, is it over here or is it over here? No, it needs to be here.
Right, I need to
Wherever
face
that means.
this direction. Or...
And it needs, and then I can stick my tongue out and do it like Michael J.
Yeah.
Well, I think we're running really long on time. We've already been at this for almost over the half-hour mark. And
Okay.
I thought it was great that we finally got to bring the old man
The
in.
guy.
Thank you.
The one.
I'll be back. I just got quarantined. That's why.
We're not trying to get rid of you. We're just saying that, it's hard to get a hold of you.
What do you think about what we're doing here?
The format is beautiful, guys. I love the way the information comes across. As I was watching the last three with 3 parts, 2 or 3 parts of each segment,
We get long-winded.
the information is spot on. It's the way that we teach. It's the way that we convey information.
Right.
For us, that is the most important part of
Yeah,
the
because all the
mind
movement
mentality.
stuff can come later.
Yeah,
It's not even
the
that,
movements
that's
can come
that's
later.
not the
That's not the
essential
focus.
thing, right?
Right.
And anything we've been doing, it's never been about the right cross, left cross, uppercut, whatever else, but
It's
it's
the why.
how the why of it all. And I think we've
Why,
always said that.
and to really comprehend what's required before you even do it.
Right.
Because if the brain says, I can't do that,
You're never going to do
oh,
it.
I don't understand how to do that,
Right.
right?
That's like the old thing that I used to always say. If somebody says jump 10 feet across, oh, that I can do. You say, well, jump 10 feet straight up. Like,
No.
I'm not even going to try because I just can't
I
do
can't do
that.
that.
My brain, if knows
Right.
I can't.
But
if it's
across-
something I could try, then you're going to work it, and then at some point you will get there.
You will get them. And some students get it right away.
Right.
Some don't, and that's fine. But that's part of that learning process.
And there is no rush.
No.
There is no rush.
Teach
You
their
know,
own
because you
belief.
are going to get those students who do fly through it, and we let them advance to their speed.
Oh, yeah.
And it's not we've never held anybody back if they learned it fast enough, or we say,
Or
okay,
pushed
well, we're
anybody
gonna-
along.
Yeah,
faster
and I think that's one of the biggest things that we understand is that the students are going to be themselves. If we're getting them to learn
We
the way
allow
they
them
learn,
to be
yeah,
themselves.
and they have to be that because when they try to stray away from that, that's when we have problems. That's when
Right.
they don't understand the things.
When they try to mimic us,
Yeah, sorry about that. You looked at me a little harder than you should have.
Yeah. When they try to mimic us in the
First
way that
3
we mimic.
years.
Yeah. Just mimicking.
And
right?
it took me a while. It's my journey,
It's
damn
not
it.
learning.
Yeah,
It's
no.
not learning, right? You're just copying.
You're just copying,
So-
yeah.
Birthday boy.
Yes.
Right.
I'm
I'm going.
All right, well,
Okay.
this is it for today. Danny is actually here on a surprise birthday party.
So we need to go cut his cake.
That's why we were able.
Yeah,
that's why
that's
we were
his
able to
wife
get
yelling
him.
at him.
On our next segment, stay tuned for that. We're probably trying to bring in some other people. Danny, thank you for allowing us
Yeah,
to,
thank you for being
Thank
here.
you, sir.
to invite
Thank you,
ourselves
sir.
to your party
Appreciate it,
Thank you, sir.
because we didn't know this about the
All right.
surprise party of yours. So
Yeah.
again, This is Colleague Conversations with me, Rick,
Me, Nahin.
And then
and our special guest, Danny.
Special guest.
And we'll see you guys next time.
Have a good one.
Bye-bye.
Thanks.